Okay. Well, here we go. Okay. Thank you. Hang on a moment. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the comment from Elena George on my one comment on my last video. Yeah, I mean, I will let you know right before I put those on private. Hopefully, I don't know. Okay, so we have Elon Musk, and we have a bunch of bullshit going on this week in Trump world, and I think sort of the term MAGA is kind of gone right now because I really do. I feel it. What do I mean by that? Yeah, things are not going to get accomplished that were promised. Um, the American people who voted for Trump. Now, I think some people, Conservative Inc., will be happy and all. But I'm not into what's going on right now. And it's not that I'm falling for negative bullshit that I'm hearing. It's not that. What it is would be I can see that we're going in the war direction. And I think there are some really bad people that Trump brought on with him in his cabinet. And I think that just what I feel and what I see, shit's bad, man. And to Pete Hegseth and Mike Waltz, and I'm not going to even say JD, Trump, Elon, all you people, I want you to know, I actually wasn't freaked out by this, which is even worse. But there's a guy, and I've seen him here before. I think it was last winter, maybe, or the winter before that. Well, actually, both times. I've been watching this dude, and I think is in a shelter, and I think sometimes he gets lost or can't get in the shelter. And this time, I saw him. At first, I thought it was a sleeping bag. It could have been a sleeping bag, a cheaply made one by my standards, but that's okay. Or a very like a king size quilt comforter. It appeared to be royal blue, and it was a black man, and he walks. He has a real weird way of walking. He walks 4 or 5 steps, stops, looks around, walks 2 more steps, stops, looks around. He's mostly looking to see if he can get in an apartment lobby with his blanket to sleep. But he also is massively mentally ill. Because I've seen him before, and I think he's, on drugs. But I'm not sure, but he behaves very oddly. I think there will probably be evidence of him being there at some point tomorrow, but I'm not sure. Sometimes I see cans of beer, like cans of Colt 45 with like extinguished cigarettes laying there. Last year I found a pair of shoes. Just rolled up napkins, stuff like that, straws, like cocktail straws. I'm like, what the fuck's going on here? But, I didn't call the police yet. I was going to, but I think he slipped into a lobby. Like the apartment security doors are locked, but just there's a separate lobby door where we have 2 of them here, and there are 3 doors total. And, you know, I've seen them. They're all open. I see, I can see what's going on. I've been here for 3 years now, and more than 3 years. I know what the hell's going on. And, I was parking my car, and all of a sudden he disappeared. So I think he's in an apartment on the next block in their lobby sleeping with his blanket. When I see shit like that still going on, I know Trump has only been in office since the end of January, and we're spending all this fucking money on war and shit, and we were promised that wouldn't happen. I mean, MAGA is over. That's over as far as I'm concerned right now. The stuff that I see with people like that man, and I've seen him around for years now, actually. He has this very weird behavior pattern. And I thought that was Biden era crap, Obama era crap. And you guys, why are you saying that for? Because I've seen it most under those two people. And it surprisingly went away for a few years under Trump. And then, we had the CV virus and, or whatever it was. And then that was it. Just sort of like, that's it. So let's, listen to this. I do not believe, supposedly this is Vance bitching about Musk. I believe there are definitely issues with regards to the White House being someone inside the circle is fucking shit up. So let's go to this first one.
He's from South Africa, and he's cosplaying as this great American leader in a room that has the portraits of some of the greatest men that ever led this country, and he has the audacity.
That is not J.D. Vance. I know they're trying to emphasize his accent and his speech pattern, but that's not him. So this is what he said on his Twitter account, X account, whatever. I keep getting suspended for literally no reason. So no one reads my posts anyway. I know they're out there. I don't post garbage. I get a lot of replies and a lot of likes, which would suggest, what I'm putting out there is something, but just forget it. And when I get suspended, it happens like I hit enter and it just boom. The words ass kicking, which I have a private playlist on my Some Girls channel, which is called 1970s Kick Ass. I guess I can't say the words ass kicking anymore. Kick ass. No, you can't say that. That's violent speech and a threat. So I don't know. It was obviously an algorithm, a very strange algorithm attached to anything that appears to be like a political article. I just think it's weird as hell. J.D. Vance says in response to, and it is AI. It's not what J.D. wouldn't sit there and go, oh, hey, he's cosplaying. He's not American. No, this is coming from Rubio, I think. Tulsi Gabbard, get on it. She's smart enough to do it. I want to see some action. But eyeliner responded, and, he looks good sometimes with the eyeliner. Okay. It's a fake AI-generated clip. I'm not surprised this guy doesn't have the intelligence to recognize this fact. Yeah, it's not him. It's someone using sort of that Midwestern inflection and his... did he go to Yale or something? You can, good try, but it's not real. I wonder if he has the integrity to delete it now that he knows it's false. If not, it could be defamation. I guess we'll find out. Yeah, go for it, JD. He's a lawyer, isn't he? It's not real. I don't think it's very threatening. Cody Vance has slammed a viral AI generated clip falsely portraying him as attacking Musk. Nah, I don't think so. Musk says he's autistic. He clearly has a lot of intellect. Vance isn't. JD Vance, I don't see him as the jealous type, as the envious type. He's got a wife that's being like, that is an Uber lib that's being brought out as the next, hot first lady or whatever. I mean, I liked her clothing and the way she carried herself, but I don't like her hair. I think she needs to, get rid of the gray and put a rinse in there. I mean, she was styled nicely for the inauguration. That's all I have to say about her that's good. There was a picture of her recently where she had one book on a bookshelf behind her, which was Earth in the Balance by Al Gore, and all that shit's been proven to be false anyway, because we'd all be dead by now, according to him. So yeah, this is fake.
But he's not. He's from South Africa, and he's cosplaying as this great American leader
No.
in a room that has the portraits of some of the greatest men that ever lived in this country. And he has the audacity to act.
All right, we heard it. Cosplaying. Who uses terminology like that? I know that's sort of a Gen X, Gen Z, very popular term right now. Yeah, I mean, no, it's not JD Vance. He's not the type of person to sit around and it's almost like he's jealous or mad at him, which a lot of people are, but most people like Elon, so and they like the Tesla thing. A lot of people don't right now. Whatever. I don't have a problem with Elon. I think his algorithms suck, and I get in fights with Grok all the time. It is not. I'm not allowed to talk about this on YouTube, but if you go to Children's Health Defense on Rumble and listen to that Dr. Corey, who was also on Joe Rogan, or no, he was on Jimmy Dore, I believe, recently. And he explained what happened to that poor girl in Texas. And she was killed by MRSA. And I had MRSA and I almost died from it. So as a survivor of that disease or that infection, that actually for me it formed in the way of an abscess in my psoas muscle. And it was almost as bad as being run over by a truck. If that gives you an idea of how bad it was. There generally is a 100% fatality rate. If you don't get it treated, you will die. And that's sort of what happened. Among other things, I don't think I can talk about it. Next thing is we're going to go to Daniel McAdams.
In his memoirs, Gold.
Okay, and we'll go forward.
The inclusion of a journalist into the discussion interest.
Here we go. I'm going to put myself on mute.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning into the Liberty Report. Dr. Paul is out of the studio today, so I will have a briefing for you, and hopefully you will find it of some interest. And I just want to talk about one topic today.
I hope this is not too loud. If it is, guys, turn it down. I can't, this computer, I can't hear it on my end. So I just, okay, here we go. Oh, what am I doing? I apologize. Okay, let's keep going here.
Today, and I think it's probably one of the most bizarre things that I've ever heard of. And that is, you may have seen it breaking late yesterday and coming in through today. That is apparently the situation surrounding the planning of the Trump administration's bombing of Yemen, and specifically the inclusion of a journalist into the discussion forum of the planning for the event. So let's back up a little bit now. Let's put on that first clip, because this is what I'm talking about that came out in the Atlantic of all places. And this is Jeffrey Goldberg. Now remember that name, because we'll talk about who it is. But this article was a bombshell yesterday. The Trump administration accidentally texted me its war plans. That's a pretty good headline, I'd say, as a former editorial page editor. And you go into it a little bit, and here's what Goldberg says. If you go to the next one. The world found out shortly before 2 p.m. Eastern Time on March 15th that the United States was bombing Houthi targets against Yemen. I, however, knew 2 hours before the first bombs exploded that the attack might be coming. And I've highlighted this. The reason I knew this is that Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, had texted me the war plan at 11:44 a.m. The plan included precise information about weapons packages, targets, and timing. This is going to require some explaining. Now, before we move on, just read. That's something I never thought I would read. The Secretary of Defense texting a journalist specific details of an upcoming attack. It's simply unheard of. But when you hear more about it, it gets even weirder, because here's how it happened. Go to that next clip. So here's Jeff Goldberg. He is the editor-in-chief of the Atlantic Magazine. Again, we'll get into the Atlantic Magazine a little bit more in a second. But here's Goldberg sitting there. He's on Signal. He gets a ping on Signal. And here's what happens. On Tuesday, March 11th, I received a connection request on Signal from a user identified as Michael Waltz. Signal is an open source encrypted messaging service popular with journalists and others who seek more privacy than other text messaging services are capable of delivering, Goldberg continues. I assumed that the Michael Waltz in question was President Donald Trump's national security advisor. I did not assume, however, that the request was from the actual Mike Waltz. And now Goldberg goes on to talk about how he thought it might be a spoof. It might be some other journals having one on him. It might be a foreign entity attempting to put some propaganda through Goldberg's pen, so to speak. So he was very suspicious of the whole thing, and I would say rightly so. But go on, and he says 2 days later, Thursday at 4:28 p.m., I received a notice that, and I highlighted this, I was to be included in a Signal chat group. It was called the Houthi PC Small Group. A message from the group, Goldberg continues, from Michael Waltz read as follows. Team establishing principles group for coordination on Houthis, particularly for over the next 72 hours. My deputy Alex Wong is pulling together a Tiger team at Deputy's Agency Chief of Staff level, following up from the meeting on the sit room this morning for action items, and we will be sending this out later this evening. Now, you can imagine you're Jeffrey Goldberg. You're sitting here in a small PC group that you've been invited into by Mike Waltz, and you have these principles in the group, coming into the group, and you're just sitting there, and it's obviously clear that you're in the group and nothing's happening. No wonder he was suspicious. Now, Bernard at the Moon of Alabama website, which I assume most of you read, I certainly read it. It's one of the best. Now, he makes it a good point. Why the Atlantic? Why Goldberg? Put this on now because he makes a good point, with which I agree completely. He said the Atlantic is the worst magazine in America. Its editor-in-chief, Jeffrey Goldberg, dropped out of an Ivy League university to volunteer to be an IDF prison guard during the Palestinian Intifada.
Okay, so this is serious. I mean, he went around killing people. Oh, okay. In his memoirs, Goldberg revealed that he helped cover up serious prisoner abuse. I mean, it's like, this is not a good person to begin with. This would be someone that would align with like a Rubio Waltz.
In his memoirs, Goldberg revealed that he helped cover up serious prisoner abuse. Goldberg is a neoconservative who has yet to see a U.S. instigated war he dislikes. To trust his reporting is dangerous. So that's a good reflection. Even if they were going to bring someone in, why would it be someone like Goldberg from the Atlantic? By the way, Goldberg hates Trump's guts, which, who knows? I don't know exactly why, but he's definitely a non-pro-Trump person. So Mike Waltz invites Goldberg into this group of principals, very, very high level, to discuss the bombing in Yemen. That's already about the weirdest thing I've ever heard of. And now I'm going to continue with Bernard's quotes from Moon of Alabama about the whole issue. I'll probably return to Goldberg's points later, but no, we have to sort of watch the timeline here. If you go to the next one, at 8:05 on Friday, March 14th, quote unquote, Michael Waltz texted the group, "Team, you should have a statement of conclusions with taskings for the president's guidance this morning in your high side inboxes." High side is the classified section of your intake. At this point, he continues, this is Goldberg, the fascinating policy discussion commenced. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The account labeled J.D. Vance responded at 8:16. Now, let's pause here for a second. You're Jeff Goldberg. You're sitting in a chat group started by Michael Waltz, the president's national security advisor. And J.D. Vance, the vice president of the United States, rolls into the group at 8:16. And here's what J.D. said. "Team, I'm out for the day doing an economic event in Michigan, but I think we're making a mistake." Goldberg adds that Vance was indeed in Michigan that day, and he adds that because he's still sort of pinching himself and wondering what's going on. So back to his writing.
Vance, someone is really fucking with Trump, Vance. That's all I can say. And you know what? I don't mind Vance so much right now, which is surprising because generally I'm freaked out at the guy, or in the past I have been. So I just had suspicions.
The Vance account goes on to state, quote, 3% of U.S. trade runs through the Suez. 40% of European trade does. And I'll take an aside to point out that we have mentioned that Thomas Massey also raised this issue that really...
Okay, so this was yesterday on the Ron Paul Liberty Report on Rumble. 3% of U.S. trade runs through the Suez. 40% of European does. There is a real risk that the public doesn't understand this or why it's necessary. The strongest reason to do this, as POTUS said, is to send a message. I didn't vote for that. And when I see homeless people struggling, it's Fahrenheit, about 25, 26 degrees. And I didn't want to have to be up and down the city streets in 20 degree plus weather. And I've been struggling, on crutches through the snow and shit like that. The snow melted, and it's Generally, 60 degrees out is the high. This time of year, I went back and did history searches for various years that I kind of remember in my life, where I was living. And okay, so yeah, this is what I was doing then. And I kept coming up with between 56, 57, and 60 degrees average high. So we're about the 20s, usually went down to 40 at night. 40 is tolerable. It's not bad. But when you get down into the 20s and it's just damp and shit, winds going at 25 miles an hour, that's 27 miles an hour it was a couple days ago. I'm just like, I'm on strike. But I have to, I move, and go outside every day. So it's just bullshit. But when I see people struggling, with sleeping bags and blankets, looking for just a place to crash out for a couple hours, because they have nowhere to live, mainly because of Obama. Seriously, I know you don't want to believe it or think I'm racist for saying it, but it's when I started seeing this shit in this area, this neighborhood. Yeah. Okay.
It really is not a very important trade route for the United States. So returning to Goldberg's recollection, this is J.D. Vance talking, there's a real risk that the public doesn't understand this or why it's necessary. So Vance is basically, the vice president is breaking in and saying, look, guys, this is not a real big issue for us. I don't really think this is going to be an easy sell for the public because they don't see why it's necessary. This is a European issue, not an American issue. That sounds pretty J.D. Vance-y, I think. And then Vance continues. And this part, I think, is worth remembering for something later on that I'm going to show you. And this is Vance saying, the strongest reason to do this, as POTUS said, is to send a message. So attack Yemen to send a message. I think there are better ways of sending a message. So as we move ahead, now go on to the next one. At 11:44, the account labeled Pete Hegseth. So you're hanging out in a chat room, right? Mike Waltz. Then the vice president rolls in. Then the secretary of defense rolls in. I can only imagine what Goldberg must have been thinking as he's sitting there. Hegseth posted in the group, team update. And this is Goldberg saying, I will not quote from this update or from certain other subsequent texts. The information contained in them, had they been read by an adversary of the U.S., could conceivably have been used to harm American military and intelligence personnel, particularly in the broader Middle East. What I will say, and this again is Goldberg, in order to illustrate the shocking recklessness of this signal conversation, is that Hegseth post contained operational details of forthcoming strikes on Yemen, including information about targets and weapons the U.S. would be deploying and the attack sequencing. So here they are sitting on a Signal chat group. And as we know, or if we don't know, we can presume there are extremely secure facilities for government officials who are dealing with highly, highly classified information. And attack plans would definitely fall into that category. There are ways. You go into a SCIF, a sensitive compartmentalized information facility, and that's where you have these conversations. Or you certainly don't use your cell phone on Signal. Okay, simple. So why is he doing this? Why is Hegseth on Signal typing in, okay, we're going to have these bombs and this and that? It's crazy. It's super, super crazy. But, and here's more, there's a lengthy text. Goldberg continues, if you go to the next one, according to the lengthy Hegseth text, the first detonations in Yemen will be felt 2 hours hence at 1:45 p.m. Eastern Time. And so here's Goldberg. So I waited in my car in the supermarket parking lot. If this signal chat was real, I reasoned, Houthi targets would soon be bombed. At about 1:55, I checked X and searched Yemen. Explosions were then being heard across Sana'a, the capital city. So at that point, Goldberg realized that he literally was in a chat room with the vice president, with Hegseth, with Waltz, and with many others, Stephen Miller, with little Mike Rubio was in there. Who else? There were plenty of others. This is a high level group. So he's sitting there, and all of a sudden he realizes that this was real. And so he took a screenshot. Immediately following the explosions, he took a screenshot of the reactions of the most senior people in our government, and you can see it here. John Ratcliffe, that's right, I forgot him, head of the CIA. He rolls in and says, a good start. And here's Michael Waltz, the president's national security advisor, who invited a journalist into a chat room to listen to these detailed plans. Instead of a detailed commentary or an analysis, he simply put out 3 emojis: a fist bump, an American flag, and fire.
You guys, I don't like this. I am so unhappy with this. It's just crazy.
I find that astonishing. I find that absolutely astonishing. And so we hear Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio says, good job, Pete, and your team. Michael Waltz says, the team in MAL did a great job as well. Stephen Miller said, good work, all. Powerful start. Powerful start. And we have J.D. Vance saying,
powerful start because you just want a show of strength. You guys,
this doesn't make any sense. It's not a big deal for America. The only reason to do it is to send a message. That's what he said. This is not to single out J.D. Vance, because some other people on the chat said the similar thing. But you wonder, you hear that America is hated around the world and despised around the world and not trusted around the world. And you think, well, why? Well, the neocons try to tell us, well, they hate us for our freedoms. They hate us because we're so good. They hate us because they're so rich. Well, I would posit that one of the reasons they hate us is because this is how they view sending a message. I'd like you to cue up that video and let's put on 20 seconds. These are the bombs that were dropped on Yemen and continue to be dropped on Yemen. If you can cue that up and play 20 seconds of that video, this is the aftermath in a residential part of the capital of the U.S. bombs.
يا ساتر يا ساتر يا الله يا الله ايش هذا الجدول دم كورونا
they just went in and bombed civilians. You guys, I'm very unhappy with this. The United States really is, I expected better from Trump. I expected better. I am unhappy. And it seems as though I can't allow my voice to be heard on Twitter. I'm not even going to bother calling it X. I'm so pissed off. I'm barely even going on there now. What's the point? But I know what it's like to be a victim of trauma and lay there and you're just laying there and you're passing out and you're going. And maybe that's where some of my empathies are coming in from at this time. So
this is sending a message. This is a civilian area. Who do they think they are? The Israelis? They bomb civilians. This is not, there are better ways of sending a message, to be honest. And I didn't go into a lot of the other part of this chat, but one of the things that Vance brings up, rightly so, is that why is there the urgency now to bomb this? Why do we have to go in now and bomb them. Why don't we just wait a month? And I think it was Hegseth that came in and said, well, we could wait a month. I don't see any reason to wait. Why don't we go ahead and do it now? Again, sending a message. Well, this is the kind of message you send. Now, if this was your
Hegseth? No, thank you. Yeah, you got your Fox News crowd. Oh, yeah, he's good. Yeah, I don't know.
was your neighborhood and a foreign country blew it up, how would you feel about it? And you would say, well, they should stop stopping our ships. Well, they're not stopping our ships. They're stopping Israeli ships because Israeli ships are participating in the genocide of Gaza. And they've stated the reason why they're doing it, and they're doing it with U.S. weapons. So let's go back to Bernard in the Moon of Alabama website, because his article is titled, he does an analysis of this. And actually, I didn't know he was going to do it. I was going to talk about this anyway, but he did an analysis. And I always respect him. So I wanted to look for his perspective. And it's worth, this is the whole point, it's worth pondering. Was this leak, is the headline of Bernard's piece, was this leak accidental or was it pro-war psyops? In other words, is Mike Waltz truly that dumb? Or was he trying to be clever and send a signal? Or, third option, was it coordinated between Waltz and a few others in there saying, hey, we're going to give a scoop to a journo. He's going to think it's a leak, and he will get out what we want him to get out. It's a question I don't have an answer for. However, here's Bernard's impression of this conversation, particularly the emojis that Mike Waltz put up. He said the juvenile behavior of the participants all but confirms that the characters are genuine, which probably I would agree with. It, however, leaves many questions. Now, here are the questions that Bernard has. Why did Michael Waltz, a former advisor to Dick Cheney, seek to add war pimp and anti-Trumper Jeffrey Goldberg to his contact list? What did he plan to leak to him? Signal is an encrypted chat application which until recently was financed by the U.S. government. That is in itself a good reason to not trust it. There have also been reports that several foreign entities are trying to crack it. Now, I highlighted this part. Why would high administration officials who have access to more secure communication systems use Signal to chat with each other? A very good question. We don't know the answer to that. Why were they on Signal? Go to the next one. Why are Vance and others implying that freedom of navigation in the Red Sea is for the good of Europe and that Europe should pay for it? The framing doesn't fit. Now, this is the part I think where Bernard is suggesting that this may be some sort of a psyop to have it intentionally leak and get Europe to pony up for it. And Bernard goes on to point out that the reason for the Houthi blockade of the Red Sea is the Zionist genocide in Gaza. Israel is the country most hurt by the stop of sea traffic to its harbors. The closure of the Red Sea has increased ocean transport costs for a container from $2,000 to $8,000 for everyone, including the U.S., because the transport around Africa takes longer, et cetera, et cetera. But the entity most hurt, of course, is Israel. So he's saying this lambasting of Europe to press it for more money is a part of Trump's general program to leak this as part of a chat, which hardly even mentions Israel or Gaza, is reinforcing that message. That's the main reason I find this leak suspicious, Bernard says. It is a very good point. And he also makes a very good point, and we're getting close to our closing here, that if you go to the next one, and this doesn't even need Bernard to explain it to us because it's pretty obvious, the use of Signal and the sending of confidential war plans over it, of course, is a breach of several laws and regulations. There are rumors that National Security Advisor Waltz would be punished for this, but I don't expect any firing or other consequences. That is Bernard's take from it. I am not so sure about that. However, Politico wrote to this morning, and I don't have a clip of the headline, Waltz's future in doubt following accidental war plan leak. Accidental, or was it accidental? That's the question that I don't know the answer to. The other part is in one of these. It's in one of these recantings of recounting of what happened was that Waltz had set his signal to part of the chat to disappear. I guess you can do that to delete within a week and what have you. And of course, that goes against American law too, and that senior officials have to retain their records for history, what have you. So that may have been a law break too. Certainly discussing materials such as this, which are classified to an extent.
Well, you'd think Anthony Blinken was still in office.
That even the classification level is itself classified. We have secret, we have confidential, secret, top secret, SCI, and then within SCI, there are different code words that you classify. And this would have been, I can't even imagine the level of code word that this would have been classified. Here's our war plans. Oh, who's this guy, Jeff Goldberg? Don't bother him. He's just hanging out. Biggie. It's really hard to believe, to be quite frank with you. So in this Politico article, it talks about Waltz may be in some hot water because of this. Politico's like reading, Pravda. You have to read between the lines. What they're reporting isn't the truth. What they're reporting is the truth from the perspective of someone who is pushing a narrative. So keeping that in mind and spinning that in your head as you read this, it makes you wonder what's happening. I have a couple of quotes from Politico that I'll finish up with. If you put that next one on, a senior administration official told Politico on Monday afternoon that they are involved in multiple text threads with other administration staffers on what to do with Waltz, following the bombshell report that the top aide inadvertently, or not, included Atlantic editor-in-chief Jeff Goldberg in a private chat. Now here is the official is being quoted. Half of them are saying he's never going to survive or shouldn't survive. And two high-level White House aides had floated the idea that Waltz should resign in order to prevent the president from being put in a bad position. Final clip over here, if you can put it up. And now here is the same official. It was reckless not to check who was on the thread. It was reckless to be having the conversation on Signal. You can't have recklessness as a national security advisor. A person close to the White House was even more blunt. Everyone in the White House can agree on one thing. Mike Waltz is a blanking, and I blanked out the word a little bit, starts with an F, I won't go any further than that, idiot. And I think that was pretty obvious to a lot of people when they brought him in. I don't know. What do you guys think? Did Waltz do it on purpose? Was this maybe a plot? And I read in one of these accounts that there are people getting together trying to get Waltz out. I don't know if it was Vance, may have been Hegseth, but there are factions developing that want Waltz out. The guy doesn't seem like the brightest bulb in the bunch, if you ask me. But at the same time, I have a hard time understanding accounts. I don't know. What do you guys think? Did Waltz do it on purpose? Was this maybe a plot? And I read in one of these accounts that there are people getting together trying to get Waltz out. I don't know if it was Vance, may have been Hegseth, but there are factions developing that want Waltz out. The guy doesn't seem like the brightest bulb in the bunch, if you ask me. But at the same time, I have a hard time understanding why he would do something so foolish and reckless. So anyway, this is one of those times where we don't have an answer, but I think this is a massive, massive scandal on a number of fronts. Number one, just the operational security issue is it makes it look like the Keystone Cops. You don't do these kinds of things. And these guys are supposed to be, after Biden's bunch of weirdos, they were supposed to be a little more competent. So it looks terrible on one hand. But on the other hand, you have this sense leaking out that, this is really not anything that critical to U.S. security. It's not really critical to our safety. But let's do it anyway. Send a message. Boom. You blow up a few dozen kids, a few dozen wives, a few dozen civilians. And it just shows how callous and cold and murderous American foreign policy is. And it hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. This is exactly how Blinken and Biden and his gang were. Obama was the same way. And now we're seeing, even though with a lot of things the Trump administration has made improvements.
Yeah, I am not on board with this, guys. Absolutely not. Um, I'm pissed off, and I'm not on board.
He is in danger, and in fact, he is getting dragged into the same thing that presidents get dragged into. They get sucked into these foreign conflicts. They think they're going to emerge, especially with someone with Trump's personality. He's going to emerge. He's going to solve the Ukraine problem. He's going to solve the Middle East problem. He's going to be elected king of the world and get a bunch of prizes. It's a danger, and it's a threat to his domestic agenda. Yemen's not a threat to the United States whatsoever. They even admitted it. What is a threat to the United States is $36 trillion in debt, a country that's literally falling apart, and a divided population. And one of the things feeding that is a bloated government. So they have to move beyond, in my opinion, bumper stickers and to get to the real meat of it, which is passing legislation to cut all of these agencies out, to cut out to end the Department of Education, the USAID, end them all, refocus. So anyway, it's an interesting chapter, and we'll see what happens in the future. In the meantime, I want to thank you all for tuning in to the Liberty Report. Please come back soon.
The U.S. Department of Education was formed after I left high school. It actually, people have, the end of the boomers, okay? And then what do you get? You get these Gen Xers that are, okay, I don't want to cut down Gen Xers because I'm sure I have Gen Xers here. Millennials, no comment. Gen Zers, no comment. But you have a massive shift from, basic education and grammar and learning and science to I don't, nothing that I can relate to at all. It I mean, the people I know were not benefactors of the Department. It doesn't do anything. It's just in case you're wondering and you're not from the U.S. Okay, the communities that you live in would be your school district. So if you live in a little teeny wedge that's part of Milwaukee, but it's not considered Milwaukee, it's village of this, whatever, you go to a different school district. Or if you're in a suburban, if you're just blocks from the city and you can manage to find an apartment, you're going to try to move in there so your kid can go to a different district. It's done on taxpayer dollars from city to city, town to town, that kind of thing. Sometimes it's consolidated between towns and rural areas. And they make it into a school district. They'll combine 2 or 3 and make it into a consolidated district, which, if you want my opinion, makes things difficult and not better. At any rate, it's each city and state has its own shit. If you move to Kentucky, you're taught one thing. It just, or you're not taught evolution or something. In a southern town that is hyper-religious, that type of thing. I'm religious, too. I don't remember an evolution, so, big deal. I don't think that that's going to make or break your life, depending upon what you're doing. I don't know. I without getting into it, We could get into that another time, but just like with the abortion thing, I had people coming at me saying, "What's wrong with you? Do you realize what's going to end up happening to your country?" I'm like, nothing is going to happen. As a matter of fact, there are many states that have new policies now that are more radical. Like they go right up to day of birth. Okay. So anyway, I'm signing out myself. Hope you guys learned something. And thanks to Daniel McAdams and Times of India.